Guess who's back? It took the death of his bestie to pull Achilles out of his self induced exile for the war. And in all that time, and because of recent events, Achilles is a whole different kind of dangerous. Grief does things to a man, especially when it's coupled with a long standing prophecy that he too will meet his end during this war. He's a warrior with nothing to lose. And so before I get into book 19, the first of the three books in this bridge between your reading assignments, you may be wondering, especially if you have experience with Greek mythology and other Greek literature, about the possible homoerotic relationship between Achilles and Patroclus. So, yes, in several other pieces of Greek literature, several other accounts of Greek mythology, Achilles and Patroclus were indeed lovers. However, you can even look this up. It's in the scholarship. Homer is not going to paint Achilles and Patroclus as lovers. They are brothers in arms, best friends, the two on the Greek side of the war that are likely the most allied in their strength, prowess, and dutifulness to the effort and their pursuit of glory. So that doesn't say too that if you're reading this and you're listening to these podcasts that kind of fill in the gaps, that you're like, man, this kind of seems bigger than just a bromance, right? I think that's perfectly valid. And if you would like to argue one way or the other, I think that is the great part of reading literature, being able to discuss it and interpret it. So, enter book 19 and its bromance makeup scene, eating refusals, and gifts. Following the death of Patroclus, Achilles is consumed with grief and vengeance. He reconciles with Agamemnon, ending their long feud. Agamemnon admits fault for dishonoring Achilles and offers him lavish gifts, including the return of Briseis. So, books later, from book 1 to book 19, this conflict is resolved, even though it had to have these high stakes to do so. However, Achilles is indifferent to the gifts, as his only focus is avenging Patroclus. And the only way in his mind that he can avenge Patroclus is to kill Hector. Achilles refuses to eat or drink until he has exacted his revenge. Despite the Greeks' attempts to persuade him, he remains fixated on battle. Athena, sent by Zeus, secretly strengthens him by infusing him with ambrosia and nectar. Achilles dons the new armor crafted by Hephaestus that you read all about in book 18. It's a beautiful book, including the famed shield, which reflects his readiness for war. His horses then prophesy that while they will carry him to victory, his death will soon follow. Achilles accepts his fate without fear and heads out into the battlefield. Achilles' return, nonetheless, is not yet the reason why he's the epic hero. Each epic hero is defined by grandiosity, physical prowess, and a distinct character arc, all of which apply to him, but we have yet to see his full growth. His tragic flaw, or the Greek term for it, which is hamartia, is his anger, his rage, his wrath, whatever word you want to put to it. Although Achilles is dead set on avenging his brother in arms and relentlessly pursues the end of the war, he is angrier now, therefore more flawed than ever. But if you're here for a good war show, book 20 is where it's at. Here, we have not only a war of the most fearsome men, but of the gods. With Achilles returning to battle, Zeus allows the gods to freely intervene in the war to prevent Achilles from sacking Troy prematurely. The gods take sides. Apollo, Ares, and Aphrodite support the Trojans. while Hera, Athena, and Poseidon aid the Greeks. That's par for the course in a lot of the battles that we've reviewed already. Achilles charges into battle with a fury fueled by his desire to avenge Patroclus. Aeneas, a Trojan prince and son of the goddess Aphrodite, bravely confronts Achilles. With the help of Poseidon, Aeneas is saved from being killed by Achilles, as his fate lies beyond the Trojan War. Hence, if you ever want to read it, the Roman epic, the Aeneid, is that fate that lies beyond this particular war, because Aeneas is prophesied to found Rome. Hector briefly confronts Achilles, but Apollo warns Hector to avoid fighting Achilles directly for now. Achilles continues his rampage, slaughtering many Trojans with brutal efficiency and driving the Trojans back toward the city of Troy. And so we have a preview of the ultimate battle to come. The whole epic has built toward a duel between Hector and Achilles, but of course, Homer isn't going to make it that easy for us just yet. We have to wait a bit longer. In the meantime, we'll entertain ourselves with Achilles' wrath and the action from the gods in Book 21. As Achilles chases the Trojans, he drives many of them into the river Scamander. There, he massacres them, showing no mercy. He captures 12 Trojan youths alive to sacrifice later at Patroclus' funeral. I know that that's upsetting, but it is the plot. Achilles kills many others, including another son of Priam, who begs for mercy. And without pity, Achilles slays him and throws his body into the river. The river god Scamander, angered by the carnage and the pollution of his waters with Trojan corpses, rises against Achilles. The river floods, attempting to drown Achilles, but Achilles struggles against the raging waters until Hera sends Hephaestus to intervene. Hephaestus unleashes a fiery inferno that dries up the entire river, forcing Scamander to retreat. Meanwhile, the gods themselves engage in combat on their own right. Apollo and Ares fight on the side of the Trojans, while Athena, Poseidon, and Hera fight for the Greeks, as aforementioned. The divine battles are fierce, but ultimately end without a decisive victory for either side. Big surprise. As Achilles presses toward the walls of Troy, Apollo, in disguise, tricks Achilles by leading him away from the city, allowing the Trojans to regroup inside their walls. This diversion prevents Achilles from breaching Troy at that moment. So, Achilles' return disrupts the war so much that even the war turns on him. And if he thought the war was in more disarray than before, us as readers, then we can see this extreme action and carnage as a buildup for some certainty. The ultimate duel of the Iliad, at least, lies in Book 22. Finally, Achilles and Hector will face each other. The two greatest wheels of the war make for a nail-biting, ring around the rosy kind of face-off. Books 19 through 20 mark the peak of Achilles' wrath and power, setting the stage for his inevitable confrontation with Hector and the resolution of his personal journey. And what we didn't read between books 18 and our next reading assignment, book 22, we learned that Achilles' inevitability of death and the acceptance of his fate are central to Achilles' character. The Trojan War's intensity has even affected the gods themselves, and were more metaphorically asked to contemplate the relationship between humans and nature and the bigger picture of all of this. Thanks for listening, y'all. Book 22 is indeed the ultimate duel, and the closing books will unveil why Achilles is indeed the epic hero of the Iliad. Will it be his war accolades that make him the hero, or something else that allows his character to stand the test of time. Start reading book 22 to find out.